thank y'all for being part of the Innovation Lab. I am Leah Sutton. I am Vice President of Policy and Engagement with Best NC, and I'm excited to lead y'all in a breakout discussion about advanced teaching roles. We have with us a team from Guilford County. Leah also works in Guilford County. So this is a statewide program. At this point, it's a part of state statute. There's an annual opportunity for districts to opt in to provide advanced teaching roles in there, to get a grant to sort of design and implement advanced teaching roles in their schools. And it is also a part of the proposed pathways plan, which you just heard a presentation about. So the idea of the pathways is that teachers would progress through stages of licensure, and the sort of end of that licensure progression is advanced teaching role positions for teachers. So I'm going to give a quick overview. Best NC's been working on advanced teaching roles since 2015. We are a big proponent of this effort, and so I'm going to give a quick overview, and then we have this great team from Guilford County who can tell us about what the work is like on the ground in their district, which will be where the real expertise will come in. So I invite you to ask questions. We can keep where it's a smaller group. We can keep it very informal, and then there will be some time towards the end of our time together where we'll just ask you to collaborate and share your thoughts and reflections on advanced teaching roles with us. And we are, for these breakout sessions, we are going to take all the feedback from all 4 sessions back to the folks who are working on the pathways plan. So this is, in addition to the email address that Julie highlighted, this is a way to get feedback to that group as well. So let's see if my clicker will work. Okay, so the premise of advanced teaching roles is that schools are flat organizational structure in schools with everybody reporting to the principal, and that this creates challenges in our school building that we don't really recognize, because this is just the way that we've always structured schools, and this is the way we've always done things. There certainly are assistant principals in our building, there are counselors and other folks, but the general structure of schools is that everybody reports to the principal. In most cases, this is principals have about, on average, 50 direct reports, which is a lot of folks to manage and try to professionally support. And so the idea behind advanced teaching roles is that this is not the way that most businesses are structured, most highly effective organizations are structured. Why would we structure our schools that way? And when we think about this structure and how it pertains to students, is that when we structure our building also as one classroom, one teacher. It's a fixed mindset. Each teacher has their own classroom and their own set of students that they work with. And even though we really do try to do PLCs and lots of ways to collaborate, this is the predominant structure. And the children that are assigned to that teacher, that's sort of their teacher for the year, and that impacts how their year is going to be. We heard in the other room that, great teaching really matters. Fortunately, we're not always able to put a great teacher in every room. And so sometimes we can find children with teachers that we, aren't ready and need additional support. And so the flat organizational structure that we're under just kind of fixes the way that we structure our schools and the way that kids get access to teachers. And the idea behind advanced teaching roles is that it doesn't have to be this way. This is problematic. So the challenges, when we have this flat organizational structure, experienced effective teachers do not have opportunities to advance, to extend their reach, to grow in their profession, except for becoming principals. Leah, do you want to be a principal?
I do not. I have a license, but I don't want to drive.
So I was the same way. I actually was a teacher, started my career as a teacher, and left the profession because I wanted to advance, but didn't want to be a principal. I just never saw myself in that role. So we know we lose great people, ambitious folks, because there's nowhere to go but up, but out of the classroom. So we also know that we have those teachers who are maybe beginning teachers, residency licensed teachers, people that are novice and developing, that really need support, but they're just in their room with their 16 kids. And despite our best efforts to give them a mentor, they don't have embedded, ongoing professional support that they really need to get better. So advanced teaching roles tries to get at that as well. The one teacher, one classroom model, which I have to say I stole from Stephanie Dean, who works at Public Impact with Brian. This restricts kids' access to effective educators. When we put our children in a room with a teacher who's not effective, that's their year. And so that's just the reality of where we are, but that limits children's access to great teaching. So this is the a very basic illustration that our team put together about how advanced teaching roles would work. And the idea here is that you pull out your very best to lead a small team of teachers on an ongoing daily basis. So it's not an instructional coach who serves the entire building of 50 teachers. It's a lead teacher who is a coach who serves a small group of 6 to 8 at most teachers. They're fully, coaching 100% of the time, and knows the kids, knows everybody's strengths and weaknesses, and provides the support, coaching, data support, all of that is needed. Sometimes co-teaches all of that, so that every child has access to an effective educator. So teachers are getting paid a lot of money to take on these leadership roles. Nikki is one of those teachers, and so this is a way for Nikki and others who are great at their craft to earn more money. That's the first thing. They get to extend their reach and advance in their career. The developing teachers get that embedded on professional support. It distributes leadership across the building. So this is good for principals because they're not trying to manage all 50 people. The lead teacher has a pulse on his or her team. And so the principal actually is more effective at guiding and leading because they're working with that leadership team. And then it increases students' access to effective teaching. So this is just another illustration of this idea where we have a typical grade level. Everybody's assigned to one teacher. One of the teachers is great. The other teachers kind of vary across the grade level. I would say that's probably typical in an elementary school. And these are the lucky kids, right? These are the kids that maybe the other teachers in the building, if their kids are in school, they're jockeying for that, or the parents who are sort of ambitious advocates for their kids are jockeying for that teacher. So this is the model with advanced teaching roles, where we pull the highly effective teacher out and she's supporting everybody. So every student on that grade level gets access to his or her great instruction, as opposed to just the one class. And she's also extending her reach, earning more money, and feeling, more valued in her profession. So Residency has surveyed the districts. There are 19 districts across the state who are doing advanced teaching roles. And there are various models across the state, so you don't have to do it one same way. But these are the two most common roles that have bubbled up. These are sort of mimicked in different words, mimicked in the Pathways plan. These are roles that are part of Public Impact's Opportunity Culture model. So it's the lead teacher role, which we've talked about a little bit, who's leading that team and coaching. That person can be 100% a coach or half-time a coach. You can structure it different ways, but they are spending a good bit of their time working with a small team of teachers and supporting them. And then the other position is extended reach teacher, someone who is really great with students, but maybe not ready for leading adults. And so that person would teach larger classes, more classes, take on additional responsibility in the building and get paid for that. Here are the districts that are participating so far. And you can see the colors are just when they've opted in. So there is now, this was originally a pilot program. It's now an annual opportunity. So we are onboarding folks every year who want to do this work. The grant opportunity is available. The RFP comes out September 15th. Your district might be interested. It's a quick 1 month turnaround for the proposals. They're due October 15th to the State Board of Education, and then new grantees will be notified later this year. But districts are opting in, and we've had a lot of success with, it started really in Charlotte, but a lot of the districts that I think traditionally struggle to recruit rural northeastern districts have found this to be a really good way to help support the people that they are bringing on, as well as keep the really good people that they have in their rooms, in their buildings. This is just the growth of the roles. Brenda mentioned this morning that there are 900 teachers in advanced roles positions, reaching about 60,000 kids across the state. So we're hitting, getting to that critical mass place where we've really expanded this. We have a brief, it was supposed to be on your tables, and I'm just now realizing that it's not. And I'm not sure that it's here. So in your folders, you do have a copy of the executive summary of that brief for sure. So you can take a look, and I'll see if we have any copies on hand that we can share with you. But this brief talks about it. It's like 30 pages of advanced teaching roles. If you're interested in learning more, I'd be happy to share a copy with you. It charts the history of overview of the research, and then a couple of important evaluations on these models and how they're working, shares best practices for districts, what we've learned from the folks who are already doing this, and then makes recommendations to the General Assembly for how to keep this going, expanding it, and strengthening it. So this is available on this link, and also we have a lot of videos about how this is working from Charlotte and Edgecombe counties. So with that, I will turn it over to our panel so we can ask some questions of them and how this is working in Guilford County, and just jump in, please. So if you have questions, why don't we start with that? Does anybody have a question for us? So let me introduce you all. So we have next to me is Nikki Buxton. She's a multi-classroom leader at Welborn Middle School. So she's one of those lead teachers. Next to Nikki is Sean McWherter, who is the director of Restart programs at Guilford County and leads this effort at the district level. And then next to Sean is Abe Hege, principal of Fairview Elementary School, who has advanced teaching roles in their school. So I have plenty of questions for them that I've prepared. If you have questions that you want to start with, dive in.
Hey, one of the biggest criticisms of the new teacher licensure pathways program is some people would argue, I don't argue, I'm not some people, would argue just clarify, that it causes competition among teachers in the building, and that those teachers, it can create a negative environment where teachers are competing for these advanced teaching roles. Is that something that you found to be true, or how do we combat that?
I can speak from the district level, and then Abe does a lot of work within his school promoting within. So one, I've never necessarily known competition to be a bad thing. And I believe that school leadership largely dictates the culture of the school. So as long as they foster that in a positive way, while helping folks to learn and grow and to continue to build their capacity, we've not run into it. Not only that, but we have enough of these advanced teacher roles in the district where maybe the position you want, it might not be at your own school, but it may be at another school, because there still are openings available for folks.
Yeah, and I would just add that how somebody buys something is how you sell it, right? So as a principal, we sell it for what it is, right? That it's a great opportunity for our teachers and our staff. But it's also something that it's a lucrative thing to have. So we want to make sure that we are identifying folks that are always doing the right thing in the building, whatever that looks like, and whatever our culture is that you have set inside of your school. But we kind of set that from day one in our culture anyways, that we're all in it together. But with that, right, there's still opportunities to advance within that. And so for my school in particular, I've had 4 MCLs. Now I'm down to 2 MCLs because I pay 3 other teachers out of an EEA to do some planning and to do some other smaller coaching things. So technically I have 5, but you wouldn't call those 3 MCLs, right? But that's just something I've learned along the way. But finding and identifying those 3 teachers that I have now, that was for a couple of reasons, right? We did it based on test scores, right? Accountability testing is what it is. We also did it based on the climate and the culture of their classroom. What's the relationship like with parents? All of these different factors go into that. And then, of course, did they want to do it, right? It's because we can't assume that everybody wants to do this because there's some additional work, of course, that comes with it. So I think that's one of the ways that we've been able to combat some of the competition from within, from on a building level standpoint.
Thank you.
You want to add, Nikki, as someone who's in the role?
Yes, I wouldn't say it's so much of a competition as in we're building relationships where we want everybody to be a leader. So me personally, and Dr. McWherter can vouch for this, I've had 2 team teachers to go to be MCLs.
Yes, that's what we want.
So it's all about fostering what they want and their goals in life. So if they want to be an MCL or go to be whatever they want to be, we want to foster those relationships and help them to grow to what they want to be as well.
I'm just curious to know, are you all finding shared interests amongst like elementary, middle versus high school? Are you all finding that more, elementary school educators are more interested in that in comparison to high school, or vice versa?
So if you just ran the straight numbers, you would find more elementary simply because there are more elementary schools. However, we have our Opportunity Culture Initiative or the advanced teacher roles in K through 12. Now, the way that we structure in Guilford is really a focus on low performing schools. So I only have one high school currently, but I get approached every year by principals of every level saying, can I do that?
Yeah.
So, I would say at first, we definitely had a bigger draw to elementary, but then once the word got out, it's all over. So in the model, in some ways, can be easier to operate in secondary than elementary anyways.
Say a little more about that.
All right, so you're gonna have to get into the weeds.
Well, I always hear from districts that they can't conceive how it would work in a high school because there's so many different positions and different content areas,
So there are a few ways, and I would group both middle and high school when I say this, because the high school is just a bigger middle school in terms of that scheduling anyways. So when you have the extended impact teacher, for example, that is actually a really difficult role to do in elementary because that person is responsible for essentially that entire grade level. You then have to condense that entire grade level down. Whereas in high school or middle school, you can do it via just your scheduling because everybody blocks or goes from one class to another every period. Same with the MCL role, which is what Nikki does. Now, Nikki is what we call a full release MCL, meaning that all day she is coaching, co-teaching, pulling small groups kids, but she is working that role the entire day. The partial release MCL, which is another version of that role, they can have a class of record. So they may teach a period or two. Now imagine doing that at an elementary school. Then the question is, well, what do I do with those kids for the rest of the day? You have to then have what public impact refers to as the reach associate or very highly skilled teacher assistant that can step into that class. Whereas at secondary, you just schedule the kids differently, right? So that is really a much more affordable way for a school to approach the role and to really leverage, recruit, and then retain these phenomenally high-performing teachers who are then not only going to impact the classes that they serve, but also then the other classrooms that they're working with. So it's like you're really getting the best of both worlds in that.
And I'll add to that because I have my two MCLs. My kindergarten, first and second grade MCL has a different story than my third, fourth, and fifth grade. So I'm a secondary teacher by trade. So first thing I did as elementary school was departmentalize third, fourth, and fifth grade because that's just how my brain sees it. And I also think in my life, I'm like, well, if I need brain surgery, I'm not going to go see a heart doctor. So I want the best math teacher teaching math, the third, fourth, and fifth, and so forth. But I do know that the growing pains for K2, that K2 MCL were much larger than the third, fourth, and fifth grade MCL, which to me models more when I talk to middle school principals and high school principal. It's a little bit easier when it comes to scheduling than it would be a kindergarten teacher trying to find time to teach another class after teaching 4 subjects.
The MCLs, are they one-year appointments?
Yeah, so there is, it's year to year for us, and there's multiple reasons for that. So we have 3 different levels of MCLs, MCL 1, 2, and 3. The level they are is solely dictated by the amount of teachers that's on their team. So for example, if a MCL is partial release in Guilford County, meaning they have a class of record, they can only be an MCL 1 because dumping more teachers on them just dilutes their ability to actually do their job. Otherwise, we can have level 2s and level 3s, but that could change year to year based on school's ADM, allotments the school receives, and the principal has to have the ability to change and modify that. I'm also going to kind of go with something what Abe was saying at the beginning of the year. If you want to talk about funding for these, when Abe started, his school had CSI funds. So he utilized the CSI funds to really leverage his high-performing people and get some good initial growth out of it. Well, as we continued, him and I met multiple times, in addition to his supervisor, to talk about the sustainability piece, which is why he then shifted to doing some EEAs, or what we call the extended duty contracts. And so he was able to drop to 2. If we tied principals' hands in saying like, hey, these people are yours forever, you cannot do that with sustainability. So there has to be the ability for the principal to have really a say in, somebody coming back next year, and you're looking for right fit, effectiveness, and all that other stuff. But if an MCL is not chosen to be an MCL the following year, whether it's due to budget or finance, performance, they are never without a job. Like they always have a job. It just might be back in the classroom, back as a CF, back as instructional coach or something else.
Are they 12-month positions or?
No, they're 10-month positions, but the school does have the ability to do an EEA if they need them for additional time.
Okay.
I always make my MCLs summer learning coordinators, so they're 12 months.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that was.
I don't know if you're principal.
I was just curious to know, from managing their effectiveness, does that shift from more of a performance-based assessment to a managerial style of assessment? Or would you say that the performance of that particular MCL is actually based on different, I guess, perspective, performance?
Yeah, so I had an MCL in science for 5th grade science. And that MCL, I mean, most science MCLs aren't in elementary schools, but 33% of our scores are from that one class, from that 5th grade science class. So I thought that it was important to have a science MCL at the very beginning. After a couple of years, we weren't really meeting what I thought was where we needed to be in science. And so I moved into a different role and out of the MCL role, which kind of sent the message to our staff that, not that I'm a bad person, well, hopefully that's not what it was. now that I reflect, maybe. But no, it's more so that, I mean, it's just like any business, right? And the fact of, we have to have results and we want to see certain benchmarks that are along the way. We gave supports and all of that stuff because MCLs need support as well, right? We just can't cut them loose, just like assistant principals need support and so forth. So we made that transition based off performance. Whereas on the flip side of that, my kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade MCL, she's now an MCL 3. She was an MCL 2, but I gave her an additional grade level. So she has 8 teachers now. But last year, kindergarten went from 6% proficient to 86% proficient. And she was a huge ordeal with that, with her 4 kindergarten teachers. So we felt that it was best as a school and a leadership team to provide another grade level for her, which in that case, I think would be what, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 advancement.
So it's something else. I'll speak to that question a little bit. The easiest and cleanest data to look at is obviously it's that composite data and it's the EVOS data, right?
Okay.
But then you also have to ask yourself, all right, but how much teacher turnover did we have? How many BTs or lateral entries is this MCL serving? How many veterans did they have last year? What's my baseline? What am I actually comparing to? So in this, whenever we do, or essentially our onboarding with new principals, or I'm doing school visits or meeting with MCLs, I talk a lot about their coaching cycle in documenting the work that they're doing. Because I may be working with, or let me phrase, Nikki may be working with a beginning teacher and a veteran teacher, right? Just like last year. And that data from that BT teacher, I mean, what happens if a teacher that had their data in the blue had just retired? I could look at the scores that she helped contribute to and say, what were you doing? This is terrible work, right? That would be so short-sighted of me, right? Instead, talk to her about the coaching cycles, the documentation that she's keeping, where she's going to show you, look, I started here working with this teacher writing lesson plans. They didn't know how to write a lesson plan. Through the first month, we're now writing, mastery level, or we'll say proficient lesson plans. Next, I'm working with her on, classroom management or transitional time. When I first started, she was taking 4 minutes to transition from one part of the lesson to the next in the class of getting out of control, resulting in multiple office discipline referrals and everything else. We've dropped discipline referrals. Transition time is down to 30 seconds or 1 minute. So there's various levels of data and success that you need to look at. And it has to be case by case. Now, I think first and foremost, I would definitely look at the composite. I would look at the EVOS data. But oftentimes if it's not where, then there's a story behind that, right? But you have to take the time to actually get into what that story is. You want to
Do you
piggyback
want
on
to
that?
add, and then I have a thought.
Oh, no, he hit it.
Okay. I have a question.
He
I have a
gave my
question.
whole coaching cycle.
I have a question coming to you next. So I do want to say on that point about the evaluation of these MCLs in particular, the state statute requires DPI to develop basically a model of how to evaluate these teachers. Not an evaluation instrument like our traditional evaluation instrument, but an EBOS model. So per Tom Tomberlin, who works at the department, what I understand they're trying to do is to look at, okay, Nikki's working with 4 teachers, and we're looking at not just what were the growth scores of those 4 teachers she's working with, but how the growth of those 4 teachers is moving over time. So to your point, if a veteran teacher dropped out of Nikki's group, then she's not getting dinged for losing that teacher, the teacher she's got, and how they are moving under sort of her watch. So that is, I think, in very early stages of development, but it is required by statute. So there is some sort of like a little bit of a mandate, we're behind on it, but a little bit of a mandate to try to get a model like that together so that there would be some sort of measure for MCLs in particular. But another thing you guys hit on is support for lead teachers. And so I want to ask you, Nikki, I don't think anybody just like goes from regular classroom teacher straight into the MCL and like just does it marvelously without support and training. So tell us a little bit about your journey in this role and what kind of support and training that has been most helpful to you.
Sure. I'm gonna stand because my legs are
Yes.
short.
And this is uncomfortable share for me too, because my
So
legs barely
I'm gonna
stretch.
stand if that's okay.
Yes, please do.
I'm still the same height as everybody. So I began my teaching career 20 years ago. I was in a district where I was an instructional facilitator and teaching in the classroom. So like on my planning periods, I would spend my time going into classes, helping teachers. Extremely hard because I still had a full load of kids. When I got to Guilford County, I became a math coach. And after my math coach position, I became an MCL. And the level of support, I was just telling Ms. Walker, the level of support that I received as an MCL is totally different than I received as a math coach. As a math coach, you go to the CF meetings and you bring back all of this information. They tell you go to the CD and they say, hey, go be great. The level of support that we've received from Dr. McWherter, I've learned so much from him, and our county walks, he does walks with us through the district, and just learning from him and having these with Public Impact, they provide coaching as well, having these courageous conversations. It's loads and loads of support because we do, yes, being in the classroom is easy for me. Yes, I can build a relationship with the students, but working with teachers is extremely hard. Mm-hmm. So having all of these different tools in our toolbox to carry us on to that they have now given us, now it's easier to have these courageous conversations and work with teachers than it was to just say, hey, go be great. So it's lots of support. I could email Dr. McWherter, say, hey, Dr. McWherter, I have this teacher and I just don't know. He said, well, Nikki, why don't you try this? Try asking this, and just being able to ask those questions to get even veteran teachers on board and building those relationships to help everybody, to help all students grow and be successful is extremely important. To answer your question.
Yes, thank you.
We frame our professional development differently for a first year MCL versus somebody, we now have MCLs going into the 5th year. So the PD is staggered differently. Now, we didn't start out that way, obviously, because we just had MCLs then in their 1st and 2nd year. But I remember, and we partner with Public Impact, our technical assistance partner for that. So I remember having my meetings with them and just, giving that push and having our thought partners saying, like, we've got to do something different. Like, I can't regurgitate the same thing to people that are going to now hear it for the 3rd year in a row. And I can't meet their needs if they're in the same session as the MCLs in their 1st year. So we have staggered professional development that we deliver for 1st year all the way through 5th year. Public Impact offers the same thing. If you guys need a partner, I'm just, if they don't pay me, but seriously, look towards Public Impact. They're wonderful. And they offer the national PD that's now staggered through 1st year, 2nd year, and such also. So don't do this on your own. And again, reach out to folks anytime. Like, call me, email me. You want to come see our schools? Like, I'll be more than happy to walk you through. If you have trouble working through the finance, I know way more about school finance than I have any wish to know, so call me, right? We'll work through it. But yeah, but having great people to work with, right? And this is the same thing that they're in our general session, we were talking about having high quality teachers in front of their kids makes the biggest difference. If you do not hire the right people for these positions, do not expect to get any growth, right? This cannot be something where you're doing somebody a favor, right? Where you need to get this teacher out of the classroom, so you're going to make them an MCL. Do not make that mistake. So I'm going to kind of, applaud Nikki right now too. I'm going to put you on the spot. Nikki, what grade level do you serve? What grade level do you serve?
6th and 7th grade.
All right. What was 6th grade math growth data from over the last year? Composite.
35%.
Right. That which was up 20 composite points from the year before. And that's, guys, Nikki is not an isolated case. Like, we see this data throughout our district. I have a school that has MCLs in EITs in math and language arts. Both of those were double-digit growth. They don't have them in science. Science went down. Okay, so like, this works. Like, you will, if it's done right, you will get results. So I'll put that forward.
Thank you. I think we have a question from the virtual audience.
Yes, we have a question in the chat from Ashley. And Ashley is interested to hear how advanced teaching roles have impacted the recruitment or retainment of educators of color in your experience.
Awesome. So when I first got to Fairview, we were 60% teachers of color, 40% white. So now I sit today about 85% teachers of color. And a lot of that has come from the recruitment and retention piece and the culture piece that we've created at Fairview for our staff, but also that the support level that the teachers are going to receive at our school. So we put an onus on the difference between coaching and supporting. And that's very big. We spent a lot of time with our MCLs and just my assistant principal and myself. What is the difference between coaching and then supporting? So we define those so we're not overlapping on those and teachers aren't hearing different things. We also created, and this came from our instructional leadership team, which is myself, my assistant principal, my MCL. So we meet once a week to discuss instructional trends in the building and so forth. One of the things that we created at the end of last year that I think has retained a lot of our teachers this year, and something that I think will retain at the end of this year, is a triangle of success. So it's a lot like MTSS. So there's 3 steps, but we stepped out each one of our staff members and the level of support and coaching that they would receive at our school. So everybody's on there, right? My assistant principal's on there. What supports does she need to be successful? What coaching does she need to be successful? And so we feel like what that has done is it provides everybody in the building an opportunity to either be coached or supported. And what does that specifically look like? And since I've been at Fairview, let me back up. When I first got to Fairview, we had 16 of our 22 teachers were BTs. Today, 4 are, and I've been there, this is my 5th year. So that's a retention number, right? And we stay at a retention rate of about 90%. It's like 89 points something. I don't know where the point comes from, but 90%.
What's the free reduced lunch or poverty level of your school?
On paper, 85%. 100% though is what it is.
Talk about the neighborhood that you draw from.
Yes. So shout out to High Point. So in the census data that just came out, our zip code, our 3-mile square radius, is the 2nd poorest zip code in the state of North Carolina. So I've got 35% of my kids that don't even qualify to ride a school bus because they're in a walk zone. I never even knew that existed, but 35% of my kids walk to school every day, some a mile. And we're in like the city too. It's not like we're in rural High Point where they can just walk on a dirt road. So, it's something that we serve a population that deserves the best every single day. And I think MCLs and the retention of our staff are able to bring that to them.
Ashley, thank you for the question.